Okay, so this is one of the interviews I've been most looking forward to, and a lot of people have this problem. It is book marketing. Everybody stresses about this. What are the best book marketing strategies and tips for authors? Well, it just so happens I have a very special guest in the founder of StoryOrigin. Now, you're not familiar with StoryOrigin just yet. This is like the author's toolkit. If you want to market and promote your book like a true professional, having StoryOrigin in your corner is an absolute must. So I'm tickled to death to interview a good friend of mine, and the second time I've interviewed him over the past few years, Evan Gow. Evan, how you feeling, buddy?
I'm feeling great. Thank you so much for having me back on. I'm very happy to be here.
Dude, I'm beyond excited. StoryOrigin has grown so much since you and I had first met a few years ago. Like, did you ever anticipate that it would grow this big for you?
I think, you know what? I think that when you're starting a company, you kind of have to go into it thinking that you're going to take over the world. So, you know, as something that I wanted, certainly didn't really expect it, but yes, it's grown phenomenally. And yeah, it's so fun because I get to do all these things a lot in public too. So we were just talking about how you get my updates about what I've been building on StoryOrigin. I feel like you've probably been able to be there with me on this journey as well.
Yeah, everything from sharing your gigantic dog, like Clifford-sized dog, as well as, your newborn baby. This is so amazing to kind of get connected. And I really recommend anybody that gets the opportunity, Evan, point downward towards your link there, storyoriginApp.com. You could set up a free account, folks, and he will send out those email blasts. Was it about once per week that we typically hear from you?
Yeah, somewhere around once a week or once every couple of weeks. It's
Yeah.
kind of just depends on where I am in my development cycle because a lot of my emails are focused around what's new on StoryOrigin.
Nice. And that's one of the parts that I most look forward to, because you just keep adding value to value to value. And it's just amazing value stack. Before we jump into the full interview, though, I want to, of course, address the live chatters out there. Anybody that's watching this live, thank you so much. Make sure that you put a question inside the chat that you have for Evan, because Evan is very experienced in this field of book marketing, and you're going to learn a lot from this guy, hopefully today, and find out whether StoryOrigin is going to be good for you or not. I'm going to tell you this, that I'm an avid user, and I even put StoryOrigin in 2 of my books, and I use StoryOrigin for those books when I launched. So this is amazing. And if you're watching this on the replay, drop your questions on down here. And if I can't answer it, I'll get a hold of Evan and have him answer that for me. So let's jump into this full interview here, Evan. I'm just going to get you a couple of boilerplate questions here. So we're just going to be very brief on this one here. Briefly explain to somebody brand new to StoryOrigin, what is it?
Yeah, StoryOrigin is sort of it's a marketing tool and a community for authors where you can work with other authors to build your mailing list, increase your sales, find reviewers, and most recently, get feedback on your beta copies. Really helps you manage basically all of that part of your author business that is not writing.
Yeah, I know back in the day, before there was a StoryOrigin or any other contemporaries of StoryOrigin, I used to have to just, if I wanted an ARC team or I wanted a beta reading team, I had to kind of put all that stuff together. And it was like herding kittens, because when you think you've got everything together, you don't. Advanced reader copies, I would have it hosted inside a cloud drive. But what's going to stop somebody from taking that link and sharing it with everyone and their mother? This is kind of nice, a good safeguard to put in place having StoryOrigin. So to me, I think the beta copy feature that you guys rolled out is just, it's beautiful. I love that. So just to kind of share with everybody how big this party is, how big this community is, about roughly how many users are using StoryOrigin?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple 10,000s of users on it. And yeah, users that you can also, I highly recommend authors, you get on StoryOrigin. You can go to the community aspects of StoryOrigin where you can run cross promotions with other authors, group promos, newsletter swaps, etc. And you can go and look for yourself there and just also find other authors in your genre and really see how big the community is there.
How receptive are authors on StoryOrigin to working together with people within their niche?
super receptive. I mean, StoryOrigin is built for authors to work together. So
Mhm.
that is one of the main aspects of it. Even if you don't find authors that you necessarily want to cross promote with on StoryOrigin, it still handles all that infrastructure for you that you need for your author business, like we talked about, delivering those advanced review copies, handling reader magnets, beta copies, universal book links, all that stuff, all super helpful and infrastructure that you need as an author. But there's also this great cross promotional aspect of it as well. And there are a lot of authors that come to StoryOrigin looking specifically to uh, do that part as well.
Yeah, this it's incredible because there's something for everybody on that platform. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight how many users are on StoryOrigin because I think a lot of people might have some reservation, especially a couple years ago when you and I first talked. You probably didn't have, a fraction of that amount. So there was probably some reluctance because they were like, I don't know. Is this even going to be worth it for me? Like, but now there's just a booming community. Not to mention, you've got a very large Facebook group. Tell me a little bit about the Facebook group and how you support people through Story Origin there.
Yeah, so there's a Facebook group. That one is a little over 4,100 authors.
Wow.
Anyone's welcome to join that. And so I write a newsletter where I talk about updates I'm making to Story Origin, but I also put those updates in the Facebook group, and it's a great place for other authors using Story Origin to connect a little bit more personally as well, because you can do all this stuff through email. And Story Origin makes that all happen for you really easily. But being able to connect with other people over Facebook in a group and just talk about, there's a lot of case studies. You wrote a case study in that Facebook group a while back
Oh,
as
yeah.
well about your review copy process, right? So you've got a lot of authors in there that are also sharing their own experiences of, okay, here's how I built my mailing list up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, etc. using StoryOrigin. Like, I put a reader magnet up, I joined a group promo, then I started organizing my own, etc. And they authors in the community, I'm so happy to be on a part of, like, building something for the internet where people are helping other people. I don't feel like you find that frequently on the internet.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm really happy that the community of authors on StoryOrigin, they're just so helpful with each other. And yeah, that Facebook group is where a lot of that kind of stuff happens.
It's incredible. I'll tell you that I've been in many Facebook groups, and sometimes I leave them because there tends to be like some toxicity in it. But you keep a very clean group, and I think that's very important. If you already are a Story Origin user, join that Facebook group. Any kind of hesitancy that you have will go away because as soon as you join, you'll see that there's a sense of community and you're able to connect with more people and understand that you're not just doing this on your own. Now, I want to just dive a little bit deeper on some of the features that you have on Story Origin. What are some of the most used features you have there? And highlight each one of those individually. You don't need to go through every last one of them because Lord knows we'll be here for the next 5 hours talking about all of your awesome features.
Yeah, I think probably one of the most talked about features with StoryOrigin, at least, is the aspects that help you build your mailing list, because that's something that a lot of authors are wanting to do and they're not quite sure how to get started. And StoryOrigin helps you with that whole process. So you can upload what we call a reader magnet, which is usually a short story prequel to your book or your series. It doesn't have to be that. If you're writing nonfiction, it might be worksheets, or if you don't have a separate short story, you might just use like a sample of your full book, like just the first 3 chapters, etc. But the point being that you're giving away something for free to a reader when they sign up to join your mailing list. And that's really important because you're showing them the value of joining your mailing list right off the bat. Um, so you can create a reader magnet. StoryOrigin handles all the file delivery for you, creates a landing page for you. So you've got a place for people to go. Now, the second step to that is actually getting it out to an audience. So that's where those cross promotional aspects of joining StoryOrigin comes into play. So I would recommend that you join a group promotion. A group promotion is where you and a group of authors, let's say you, me, and 20 other fantasy authors, will all list our reader magnets on a single landing page. So all of our book covers will be on a single landing page there for our reader magnets. And then we all drive our own traffic to that landing page, whether it's through our newsletters, if we're just starting them, even if we have 0 subscribers, even if we just have our own email on our own mailing list, start sending that newsletter. Um, uh, through our social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. We all drive our traffic to that landing page, and then we all build our mailing lists up together by readers discovering our free short stories and joining our mailing list to get those. So that's really sort of where a lot of authors start with StoryOrigin, because building that mailing list is a really valuable asset. And then from there, StoryOrigin gives you a lot of other tools that make having that mailing list even more valuable. So like you were talking about, you use the review copies feature on StoryOrigin.
Yeah.
So there, what you can do is same very similar process to a reader magnet. You'd upload your file to StoryOrigin. It creates a landing page for you. The difference is when a reader comes to that landing page and they want access to that review copy, what they do is they request access and they say where they're intending to leave a review, whether that's Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, other major retailers, etc. And then they can also leave the links to their reviewer profiles on those different sites. So, if I say that I'm going to leave a review on Amazon, then I also have to leave the link to my reviewer profile on Amazon. So I make that request, and then you as the author get to vet each individual request for a review copy. So you can go to that person's reviewer profile, look and see, okay, have they actually reviewed anything recently or anything at all? Have they reviewed stuff in my genre, etc.? And then StoryOrigin also gives you stats about the number of review copy processes that they've completed in the past. So if they've been approved for 20 review copies and they've completed the process for 19 of those, I know that person's probably going to finish my book and leave a review. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can vote that both sort of them from a context standpoint of what kind of books are they reading, and also like their completion stats.
I like that you have all that listed, because it was funny, as my first project, I didn't know what I was going to get into with StoryOrigin, because I was like, okay, I'm not really sure how this is going to go out. I can't remember how many ARC readers I had. It was close to like 100, I think. But what ended up happening is, after that first campaign, I went to a second and third, and I started seeing some repeat offenders showing up to where they weren't leaving reviews of the previous book. So I was able to reject them, and that made life easy. Speaking of making life easy, you have a lot of features throughout StoryOrigin, and Katie Wagner brings up a great point here in the live chat. And she said, is there a tutorial? Because it looks confusing to me. I signed up and got to the finish setting up your account, and I have no idea where to go from there.
So if you go to the tutorials tab in the top navigation bar on StoryOrigin, mm-hmm. there's a tab that says tutorials. And you'll find there's 2 sections. There's one which is text guides, and then there's 2 which are video tutorials on the specific features. Okay. If you don't know where to start with those text guides, and they're about specific topics. So you can find a specific text guide that this is how to build your mailing list, and these are all the things that you need to do, and this is why it's worth doing it. Mm-hmm. There's a text guide there to how to find reviewers and build a review team. There's a text guide there to managing your beta copy process as well. But for most authors that are just starting out, I'd say start with that building your mailing list post, and just go through that one, because it is really in depth, and that is the key basis for creating more and more value for yourself.
Yeah, and not to mention too, something that you folks will find when you go into each one of the features, he always has a link out to a video tutorial. So when you go to a specific thing, say review copies, he's got a tutorial there showing you how to do it. And the cool thing is, Evan doesn't spend 30 to 45 minutes telling you how to do it. It's like a few minutes long tops. So you'll be able to burn through each one of those. And it's also like a YouTube hosted video. So if you want to watch it in 2X, you can literally put it in 2X, because I'm sorry, Evan, I've watched you in 2X so many times before.
That's the way to do it. I watch everything on 2X as well.
Yeah, it's just that's
I
the
watch
way to
myself
go.
on 2X.
Hey, me too.
How did I do on this?
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the features, because what feature on StoryOrigin do you have that few authors use, and why is that?
That's it's interesting. I would say one of the features that's probably the most underutilized is actually organizing your own group promotions.
Mm,
It's very simple to do.
okay.
It takes about 3 to 5 minutes to fill out the form to create the group promotion. Then you go and you create a graphic for the group promotion, which will like be a banner at the top of the landing page where all the other authors' books are displayed,
Mhm.
and you'll have the banner at the top there. Um, it is underutilized, I say, because it is incredibly valuable to be the group promo organizer, um, because that gives you the ability to set books that will appear as in premium spots being at the top of the landing page.
Ah,
Everybody's books are randomized every time someone hits that landing page. So if you as the organizer you are the group organizer and you put your books at the top, they'll always appear at the top. So you can get a lot more value out of group promotions by having your books just be listed at the top, and their images will be a little bit larger. It takes a little bit more work to be a group promo organizer, though. I don't say do this necessarily super lightly, because one of the things that you want to do as a group promo organizer is make sure that it's successful for everyone involved. And really, the key thing there is just getting a bunch of authors to join it. StoryOrigin has a list of all of the upcoming group promotions that are available. So authors are constantly browsing upcoming group promotions that they might want to join for the next month or two.
mhm.
And so you'll get a lot of authors that are just joining that way. But I would say, go a little bit out of your way to put in a little extra legwork and like post the link on. There are lots of different Facebook groups for authors to organize cross promotions with one another. Post the link in those Facebook groups. It not only will get more authors to apply, but it also helps you build personal relationships with the other authors that are joining the group promotion. And especially if you're doing this regularly, you'll start to build relationships with the participants in the group promos. And those are people that will be incredibly helpful to you when you've got a new release, or you've got a discount or a sale that you're doing that you really want to bump up. You can organize all those sorts of like newsletter swaps and things through StoryOrigin, but also having personal relationship, if you have to organize something super, super last minute, can be incredibly valuable.
Nice. How far out should we book a group promo? A month, 2 months, 3 months?
If you're organizing your own group promo, I'd recommend sort of at a minimum like 6 weeks. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, but generally I would recommend you want to run your group promos for a full month. So
Okay.
from the first of the month, or the last day of the previous month to the end of the current month. Um, and the reason that I say that is when you are organizing group promos and authors are joining group promos, they are authors that are joining are going to be including that group promo in their newsletter. And authors send their newsletters out at all different times of the month. So some people send it on the 1st, some people send it on the 25th. And so by having your group promo be the whole month, make sure that it allows every author the opportunity to join, and you're not missing out on anybody just because you decide to make your group promo only like 2 or 3 days or something. I'd recommend, the only time where I think that there's value in having a very time limited group promo is if you are doing a specific thing where you and a bunch of other authors want to promote like your 5 days free on KDP or something like that, right?
Smart.
Where hey, me and 5, 10, 15, 20 other authors, let's all set our books to free during this very specific 5-day window, and we're all going to do a group promo together, and then we're all going to like boost our page reads during that time.
Makes sense. I'm glad you were able to clarify that we didn't have to necessarily go for a full 30-day promo, that we could actually get it down to like a 5-day, because it crossed my mind. Now, this kind of leads to a great point here. I'm sure there are a lot of mistakes that authors make through the StoryOrigin platform. What's one of the most common mistakes authors make when utilizing StoryOrigin?
I think one of the most common mistakes is actually quite simple.
Hmm.
Um, when you are running cross promotions through StoryOrigin, when you're joining newsletter swaps and group promos, you get a tracking link that is specific to you for that specific cross promotion. So if I organize a newsletter swap with you, Dale,
Hmm.
and I say I'm going to send your book out to my audience of, let's say, let's say I've got a mailing list of 1,000 readers or something.
Okay.
I'll get a tracking link that's specific to that newsletter swap, and I want to drop that in my newsletter. And that tells you how many clicks that I sent to your book. And
Okay.
then the number of clicks that I sent to your book, it's also, you can see that history when you go to swap with other authors. So before I do a newsletter swap with another author, which for those of your audience that might not be familiar with the term newsletter swap, that's just an agreement between you and me that I'll mention your book in one of my upcoming newsletters if you mention my book in one of your upcoming newsletters. We're not like trading subscriber information or doing anything like that.
Yeah.
All it is I'm agreeing to mention your book in my newsletter.
Gotcha.
So using that tracking link from StoryOrigin is really important because when I go and I request newsletter swaps with other authors, or other authors request a newsletter swap with me, I can see how many clicks that they've sent to past newsletter swaps and past group promos as well. So there's that transparency there, and that allows me to know, okay, is this someone that's going to uphold their end of the bargain when I'm agreeing to cross promote with them? That is not something that you can get when you're doing all of this through like Facebook groups and Google Forms, etc. There's not that sort of community transparency there. And that's something that's really valuable that StoryOrigin brings to the table. But it can be easy to forget to use the specific tracking link from StoryOrigin that you get. StoryOrigin makes it really, really obvious. And there's a column that says, use this. Here's a little caution arrow. Make sure to use this. Please use this. But just occasionally people forget to use it, right?
Yeah.
And that's something easy that just a lot of people starting out will forget.
Yeah, and I think it will also, having that transparency out there will increase the odds of somebody wanting to work with you and doing some newsletter swaps. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. All right. So what is one, and I mean just one, marketing strategies authors need to have?
I would say it really starts with the mailing list.
Okay.
I mean, because so much of marketing nowadays, if you look at the landscape, look at advertising. If you're running ads on Facebook or Amazon, etc., a lot of those platforms are bid based, right? And as the market becomes more saturated with more authors and more advertisers, the bids on that continue to increase, making it more and more difficult to actually see an ROI on your ad. So you'll find that only authors with huge backlists in certain categories are really able to make any money off their advertising. Or if you look at like just social media, just like posting your Facebook page or whatever, it used to be 100% of people that followed your Facebook page, you would show up on their feed. Now it's all algorithmically driven. So maybe only like 1 to 3% of people that follow your Facebook page are actually going to see any of the content that you post. And like, that's probably generous. And then you look at review rates across products as well on Amazon or, BookBub or Goodreads, etc. Review rates are really low on products, and it's really difficult to get people to review. Having that mailing list gives you a direct point of contact with your audience. And so you can actually build a relationship with your audience. And when I have a new release, I don't need to go back to the well to, advertise or do whatever else. I already have direct contact with the people that have signed up to, get my newsletter. And I can say, oh, hey, you read book 1? Well, book 2 is out. Like, time to go check it out. Right. So that is incredibly valuable, because that is not something that you can get really through any other platform, because email is something that you own.
Yeah, I'm not gonna even add any more to that. That was beautiful. I do want to give some time for some question and answer here after the interview, but my last question for you is, how can viewers get in touch with you?
So you can go to storyoriginapp.com. And if you go to the bottom of the page, you will see my email address is literally on the front page of StoryOrigin if you just scroll to the very bottom. Or if you hit the contact link in the bottom footer, you'll also get my email address. My inbox is always open, even though, thousands of authors are using StoryOrigin. I've worked very hard to make it very intuitive, so I don't get a ton of emails actually. So I'm always happy to just answer questions from people that are finding StoryOrigin and want to learn more about it, or are curious about one or the other features. So yeah.
He was very helpful when I went to do my first ARC team and building that out, because my files, you remember that? They were huge. They were so big. You were like, yeah, bro, I can't host those. Those are way too large. And you really walked me through it. And it wasn't like you charged any extra for it. In fact, you were still an open beta back then, helping me out that way. So I do appreciate that much. All right, let's go over to the live chat. I do notice that there are a little over 20 people watching right now. And anybody that has StoryOrigin, let me know inside the chat, or if you just picked it up now, let me know as well, because I know I seen X Nemesis 73 just signed up for StoryOrigin. There you go. Hannah Jacobson from Book Award Pro said, "So glad to catch this live interview. I've heard great things about StoryOrigin from Dale." Have I introduced you to Hannah yet?
I don't think we've met.
You're gonna need to meet her for sure. She's a gem. We already covered the Katie Wagner. Oh, SD Houston. She is I also got her own YouTube channel. She said, "I use StoryOrigin and just did a video on it." So the cross promotions is the big winner for me. And she said also, "The review process didn't work for me. I had to find most of my reviewers, and they are the only ones to review. The ones for the site have never left a review." Get with me, SD Houston. I honestly, I crushed it on the reviews. Like, honestly, and I think even the case study that I did for you, Evan, I think was with the Amazon keywords for books. There was this one right here. The ratio, I think, originally was like I had 1 out of every 3 people leave a review. And I went through and I just looked at the updated ARC team listing, and I noticed about half the people ended up leaving it. So don't ever expect to get many reviews. You want to build out that team. Is there any way you can kind of expand on doing an ARC team?
Yeah. So one of the things I would mention, so it sounds like they're like, you might have joined some group promos for review copies or something. So here's what I'd recommend as my process for building a review team. You want to start your mailing list. You get that reader magnet out there. You start building your mailing list with StoryOrigin. And then that audience that you've built with your mailing list with StoryOrigin, you can also send them the link to your review copy that you have hosted on StoryOrigin as well, so people can request there. So it might seem like, you're bringing your own audience, but that is an audience that also StoryOrigin can help you build up as well. So send out the link for your review copy to your own mailing list. Second, you can join group promotions. It sounds like you might have joined a group promotion. I would also recommend doing newsletter swaps for review copies, which very few authors do, because a lot of authors tend to focus on sales. And I think that some authors tend to focus on sales a little bit too early before, without turning their attention to their reviews. And that can be an issue sometimes, because if you have very few reviews on your book on Amazon or wherever else, it's going to hurt your conversion rate. So you might be able to send traffic to that sales page through newsletter swaps, but if you've got, only 1 or 2 reviews there, it's going to hurt your conversion on sales. So what you can actually do is run a newsletter swap and have other authors promoting your review copy as well for you. And then, like we talked about the process before, readers request that review copy. You want to make sure that you're vetting them as well. I'm not sure how much you vetted your reviewers before approving their requests, but definitely check out like the links to their Amazon or Goodreads or BookBub reviewer profiles. Check out their stats to see whether or not they've completed reviews on StoryOrigin before. And if you feel comfortable there, then go ahead and approve them. StoryOrigin always leaves you in the driver's seat about who you approve for your own review copies. Other platforms do it differently, where they make their own decisions about that, but StoryOrigin leaves that sort of assessment of risk up to you as the author, because it's your business. And so those are the other areas. And then lastly is you can always post the link to your review copy across social media, right? Like Facebook, Twitter, etc., and try and drive some people to your review team from there.
Nice. Good tips. I want to kind of stack something on here, and this is probably some data that you may or may not know here, Evan. In the Amazon advertising certification course, one of the things they discussed was to make your product retail ready. I'm putting it in quotations marks, because they feel that a product's not retail ready until it has a certain number of reviews and an average number, because 91%, that's right, 91% of customers that purchase something on Amazon look at the reviews first. So now the next thing is having at least 15 reviews with an average of 3.5 stars or greater. Having those in place is going to make a huge difference in getting more conversions when you're sending people to that. So really focus on trying to get those reviews up. I'm going to say this, that StoryOrigin is directly responsible for helping me get, I mean, gosh, like Evan right now, that book has over 100 reviews on it. That came from using StoryOrigin.
Awesome.
Yeah, and some of it obviously is organic, but I know right out the gate, I had like 30 reviews within the first week, which was phenomenal. And I was super, super happy about it. But I just wanted to kind of share that little bit of info. All right, we got a question here. This is coming from SD Houston again. If I want to change my direct download link, fearful of the link being shared, what's the easiest way to do that? Do I just need to redo the project?
Yeah, if you wanted to change your direct download link, you would have to change it. There's some stuff that I'm going to be working on there, which is going to be upcoming, which would make doing something like that a lot easier. But yeah, the current process that you would do is you would just remove the direct download page and then you'd create a new one. That being said, like if you're worried about the link being shared, one thing that you can do is you can actually integrate that direct download page with an email list that you have on, MailChimp or MailerLite or whatever. One thing we haven't talked about is that StoryOrigin actually integrates with 9 different email service providers and gives you different ways. So like if someone signs up to your reader magnet, like their contact info can be sent directly to your mailing list, or like in the case of direct downloads, like we're talking about, you can integrate it with a mailing list so that only people whose email addresses show up on that mailing list are actually able to download the book. So like if you want to run your review copy instead of using StoryOrigin specific review copies feature, and you just want to provide the download to a certain segment of your mailing list, you could integrate that direct download with that particular mailing list. So only people that enter that email address will be able to get that download.
Nice. I just seen a 2-for-1 question here. Simone Gastandi said, what if you don't have an email list? And Katie Wagner kind of said the same thing. I have a trilogy written, 2 books ready to publish. Any suggestions other than start on the email list? So what are your thoughts on that?
So there's a lot of things that you can do with StoryOrigin without having a mailing list. Again, like all that infrastructure that you use on StoryOrigin, right? From using the universal book links, beta copies, distributing audiobook promo codes we haven't talked about, but like, yeah, you can set all that infrastructure up on StoryOrigin. It doesn't matter whether or not you have a mailing list. I certainly highly recommend building one. StoryOrigin can help you do that. But like, even if you've got these new releases that are coming out and you are collecting feedback from readers, and let's say you've got, you're sending out your Word document to your friends or people that are willing to beta read for you, and you're sending out Word files to 5-10 people, and you're collecting feedback across all of those different files, it becomes extremely difficult to your editing process when you're trying to find, okay, I want to read all of the comments just across chapter 1. Well, now those are on 10 different documents, and you have to try and collate all of that, right? Or if you're doing this all in Google Docs, right, you might send everyone different Google Docs links. Because one thing that I've heard from a lot of authors is they don't want people to see each other's comments in Google Docs because they tend to bias each other's feedback. So you might have one reader makes a comment and they might not, someone else might not have thought anything of it, but then they saw someone else made a comment. So now they're going to jump on it and they're going to say, oh yeah, I also thought this was such and such. And so you don't really want people biasing each other's feedback. So if you use the beta copies feature on StoryOrigin, everyone's comments can't see each other's comments. But you as the author can see everyone's comments in one place. So it's really beneficial for helping you with that editing process, especially if you've got, it sounds like, new releases coming out. So definitely recommend checking that out. The other thing is using the goal trackers feature. It's not something that a lot of authors will talk about on StoryOrigin. But authors who try it out just because they're like, I saw this thing on StoryOrigin. I'll start tracking my word count, just see what I think. And they're like, okay, this changed my writing game because now I actually see like, okay, how many words did I do yesterday? That updates automatically like okay, how many words do I need to hit every single day in order to hit my goal of 50,000 or whatever it is for the next month? All that's there is like automatically calculated for you, and authors have found a lot of value out of using that feature. So yeah, those are a couple things I'd recommend checking out, even if you don't have new releases, even if you don't have a release yet.
Yeah, I know most times, and I'm going to speak to these two authors here. Most times, I know a lot of people have reservations in doing email lists. It seems like it's one extra thing to kind of do. But I promise that once you do break ground there, it does get easier. In fact, SD Houston just said inside the chat, joining StoryOrigin will help you with that. I only had 6 people on my list, with 2 being my hubby and me, and I jumped up to nearly 100. 6 to 100, technically 4 to 100. How amazing is that? I mean, that's quite a testimonial right there. Any thoughts on that, Evan?
I would just say like that experience is not uncommon at all. Yeah, you will definitely be able to build your mailing list on StoryOrigin, and yeah, get up to hundreds of subscribers or thousands of subscribers. I've seen a lot of authors get thousands of subscribers through StoryOrigin. So it's certainly possible. I think what it boils down to is a lot of people are really hesitant about building a mailing list and sending newsletters out to people because they feel like they're going to bother people and they feel like it's not wanted. And one of the things that I will say is, like, as an author, you're putting yourself out there, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're putting your work out there to be critiqued by people. People will leave reviews. And I think that building a newsletter actually gives you a direct point of contact with your readers that a lot of authors actually find to be more motivating, because they actually get emails back from their subscribers. I was just talking to an author the other day. He said he had gone from, a handful of subscribers, something like 5 or 10 or something, up to like 600 plus subscribers in the matter of a couple of months on StoryOrigin.
Wow.
And he sent a newsletter out, and someone replied to him with a paragraphs long email, about, oh, I love this part of your story. I love this. This was great. And it was great because that author was connecting with people that are like a part of their tribe. And I think people are really hesitant. I totally get it too. I still personally feel hesitant about sending emails and newsletters out, and I've been doing it for years. If you're like me, you will never get over the fear of sending your newsletter out. But it is incredibly rewarding. I do not think StoryOrigin would be where it is if it was not for my newsletter. And I do say that very seriously. I mean, I think, Dale, you were saying,
I'm a fan.
You get my newsletters, you open them, you check out my updates. Yeah, I mean, I think if I just built features every day on StoryOrigin and I just shipped them and I didn't tell anybody, people might notice, but they probably wouldn't notice. And having that newsletter really allows me to get the word out about that. And yeah, that's incredibly valuable. Same thing for authors.
Yeah. So true. And I think there's, that whole thing of, this is one extra thing that I've got to do, or I don't want to bug people. I'm glad that you addressed that. You'll be surprised. I literally look forward to seeing Evan's emails, and not from a standpoint of, hey, I'm an affiliate for StoryOrigin. No, I get real excited to see new features and things that I can kind of play with as an author. Another great example would be, I'm signed up to a service called podcastguests.com. They send me out a twice per week email newsletter with a bunch of podcasts looking for guests. I look forward to that. Like, I literally stop everything I'm doing so I can get that email. I want you to kind of put yourself into that position as an author. If you're at that point where you're like, I don't know, like, it's going to be worth it. When you get that reply, kind of like what Evan's mentioning, I've had a reply to many of my emails. It will make your day. It will put pep in your step. I promise you, if you just do it, it'll be worth it. What I would say is, to find out what's going to be the best fit for email marketing services, just look at the 9 ones that he services now and pick out one that works best. I know you cover MailChimp and MailerLite, right?
Yep.
Those both have free plans. They both have free plans up to a certain amount. And once you get yourself past like 1,000 subscribers, it's off to the race, baby. You're going to be having a stellar email list. Evan, we are going to go ahead and start to wrap things up. Is there any last minute thing that you would like to share with our audience?
And just check out StoryOriginApp.com. If you've got any questions, shoot me an email. My inbox is always open.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for coming apart here. Evan, gosh, I'm just speechless here at this point. It's always awesome getting to chat with you, but getting you to come on to the main channel and talk a little bit more about Story Origin, I do appreciate it, man.
Thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate being here.
Those of you that are watching this on the replay, make sure, of course, that you hit this little video right here. That's the original interview with Evan, where we had talked a little bit about Story Origin back then when it was an open beta. Now it's open completely to the public. And so I will see you in that video. Take care, folks. Thanks again, Evan.